Good morning. Yeah, on the Tuesday live, with me, Tanya Bueta, and such a beautiful day, nice, cool day, and just loving the coolness of of this time that we're going into. Oh, I'm so excited about this morning's word again, and just really going to trust the Lord to make this so real to you so that you will know how to drive your stake into the ground and to basically say enough is enough, to stand firm in your faith when everything that possibly can come against you. Is coming against you. And I just really believe that because of these times that we are in, these times of moving forward of what this year has, as I've been talking about, that this year is a year of the suddenlies of God, where as you are going on, walking out your purpose, what he's called you to, and doing the kingdom purpose that he's called you to, that he will come in and by his grace, that he will break in and break through into our lives. And it's really a time of aligning yourself and really coming into alignment with God again and again. If you have not done that yet, as we are moving in this time in his kingdom, but also in this world that we're living in, we can see these times that we're in is different. And this is a time for you to arise and shine, and his glory will come upon you. That's what his word says. And this whole thing of his glory that will come. As you are just scrolling through this morning, I'm going to encourage you to just, as you see my face, join me on this live. I really know that you will be encouraged this morning as you are watching this. And I really want to talk about this thing of this beautiful scripture in Matthew 6, verse 28, where he says, "See how the lilies of the field grow. They don't toil and spin for their beauty. They are beautiful." And we're going to look at this word toiling. We're going to see what that actually means. And this is not something that the Lord is asking of us to do. This is not the way that we should be living this life. And I'm talking especially if you are in this space where you have really just said, "Lord, my life is yours," and you're walking in obedience with him at the moment, and you're wanting to walk out what God has for you. But you're in a place where you can see that resources are being withheld, whether it is finances, whether it is the things that you are needing to go forward in this, whatever space it might be in. It might be ministry, in business, you as a family, maybe there's a huge geographical transitioning, whatever it may be. Someone commented and said, yes, that the harvesters are few. Those who are meant to come and harvest and be part of that are few. So it's all these things that we're trusting God for so that we can walk out the purpose that he has. And at the moment, there is definitely this withholding of our resources. And so what we do in these times of pressure, I don't know about you, but for me, it is often when you're feeling that pressure and you start to do these things where you go into a place where you can actually start feeling so anxious and tormented. And so this is what I'm wanting to share with you this morning. And what can we do? How do we actually respond? What is God saying right now? How can we respond in this place? You know, there's that beautiful picture of Mary and Martha where Mary is so attentively listening to Jesus, and she's just in that space of wanting to just get everything she can, the revelation that he has to give. And then Martha is sitting there and she is working. She's busy working. And it says that she was working herself into exasperation. She was feeling exasperated, which means she was exhausted. And Jesus said to her, when she said, "Why isn't Mary helping me?" He said, "Why are you worried, bothered, and anxious about many things, Mary?" And I think sometimes we can get ourselves into that place. And so coming back to this verse about the lilies that do not toil or spin, this word toiling in the dictionary, it says that it's something that binds, snares, or entangles one in an entrapment or exhausting labor or effort. If you can imagine that you are caught in that entrapment and you can't get out of it, it's like it's a really hard place to be in. And you to the place of also where you are exhausted, and it's your effort in it, and to the place of exhaustion. And this is not the type of labor and toil that God is wanting us to go into in this space when we are trusting Him for the promises, for the things that we have been praying for and that we've been trusting Him for. And in the Webster Dictionary, it says that it means a long, strenuous, fatiguing labor. And this is not what He's called us to, especially in these times. And so if you may be finding yourself in that space of this toiling and laboring to the place of exhaustion, just know today that God wants to encourage you and know that His promises for you will happen. It will happen. As I go on this morning, I just pray that you will be encouraged, that your faith will be encouraged, because a little bit further, this verse in Matthew 6, in verse 30, Jesus says to them, "Ye of little faith, ye of little faith." In other words, you have such little faith to worry about today and what tomorrow might bring. And you want to go now into this place of toiling and making a plan and to the place of exhaustion. And then He says, where's your faith? Come on, this is not what I've called you to. And then He says, in another translation, it says, "Oh, struggling ones with so many doubts." Maybe sometimes you can find yourself in that place where you have all these many doubts and you're just struggling with this thing. And also it can feel like you're going around in a circle when this happens. And let's just go back to Genesis 3 verse 17 to 19. And I'm going to read this to you this morning, where He says, when Adam and Eve had sinned and God was speaking to them and saying, this is how it's going to be from now on. Hey Louise, it's so good to see you, Anya, my friend. In verse 17 He says, "Through painful toil you will eat food from the ground all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food." And when you read this, and so there He says, that was before Jesus, through painful toil, which is that thing of long, strenuous, fatiguing labor. That is how it was then. And that it will produce thorns and thistles. Can you think of a time where, with Jesus, that came in? And by the sweat of your brow. And you know what? Hello, Monica. Good morning. And so this takes us to when Jesus came and He was crowned with the crown of thorns on His head, the sweat of His brow. There's something about that. He was crowned with the curse of the ground, this very curse in Genesis, where God is saying to them, because of what you did, because of what happened, you're going to be toiling. It's going to be hard now, man. And you were in this whole other space, and because of what you chose, this is now going to be part of your life, this strenuous, fatiguing labor. And yet, when Jesus came and when on the cross and him being crowned with a thorn of thistles, it changed everything because he took that curse on him, which means that this is not what we should be doing. This is not this place of toiling, laboring and spinning. And when I talk about this, I'm not talking about faith and works when you are just doing the things, the actions, the what is in your hand, the plan and the walk that God has for your life. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this where you're exasperated and exhausted. And there is Jesus now, and he came to change this. And just as the thorns and thistles from the ground, which they were going to eat from, that God said, this is going to be this curse now. The ground is cursed. And you imagine Jesus and the crown sitting here on his brow and how that changes everything. Ooh, I just want to take a moment and let us just imagine and think about that. How incredible Jesus. And if you think about the disciples in the boat with Jesus, there they were in the boat with Jesus. And in the storm, which was definitely a demonic storm that came against them, because Jesus cursed the storm when he woke up. But he said to them, ye of little faith, because they were so worried, they were so scared in this boat, and yet they had just witnessed the miracles of the bread of the 5,000 that he had done, that they had done, that they had acted on and experienced themselves, that very thing. And yet now they're in this boat with Jesus. And again, he says to them, he of little faith, the same thing in Matthew 6, when he talks about the lilies of the field. You're so worried what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, but he of little faith. And this thing of faith is such a big part of our lives. And that is the very thing that we can do now, where instead, he says, stand firm, hold fast to your faith. So in these times that we find ourselves in, when the resources are not coming, when things are not shifting, when it's not changing, he says, stand firm. And here in the word, in 1 Corinthians 16, verse 13, he says, stay alert, be on guard, stand firm in your faith. Why is it that we should be alert and be on guard and when we stand firm in our faith? And I just think it is because we can so quickly be distracted because it's so difficult that our faith is being challenged, and there's no ways on my God, on my watch, that I'm going to let this happen. I'm going to stand firm. And further on in that verse, he says, act like mature men and be courageous and be strong, which means it is going to take courage. It is going to take courage. And then in Hebrews 10, he says, let us hold resolutely to the hope we profess. For he has promised, his promises will be. And another translation there, it says, let us hold fast to our faith. And this is what I just want to talk about a little bit. Can you imagine holding on? My mind, I don't watch rugby, but my mind immediately went to rugby or football, where you are holding on to that ball as you're running towards that goal. And you are embracing that ball and holding so tightly, and every man that comes to try and take that away from you cannot, because you are holding that so tightly. You are wrapping your arms around the promises of God. You're wrapping your arms around this vision, this dream, this purpose, and these plans and these promises so tightly that nothing will be able to take it away. You're doing it with all your might and rejecting every attempt of every Man, every circumstance, every threat or lie of the enemy that comes to try and steal that away from you. And you are being determined and inflexible. I'm using a lot of big words this morning, and it's just because it's so rich and wanting to just bring this to you. You are going to be unmoving. You can be that unmoving person. And further on there, let us hold fast, which I was just talking about now, to this faith, to these promises without wavering. And this word in the Greek, wavering, is a beautiful word. Without wavering. It's unbending, where it doesn't matter what happens, but you are stable. As I was talking about now, you are standing firm. That is the very Greek. But you know what? The opposite of that word in the Greek means it's a person that's bent over. They're so tired and exhausted that they throw in the towel and give up. And that's why I felt I really wanted to share this morning, because many are going to feel like they're just so exhausted, so tired, and they just want to give up. And God is saying, no, I'm not going to let you give up. And this word in the Greek says that they eventually go to the couch and they end up lying on the couch and they just become a couch potato. And that is not who we are. And so instead of that, we are going to be those people who are unbending and unchanging. We're not going to allow anything to come and take what God has said, what He's given us, away from us, as we stand firm in our faith. And going towards, I just want to finish with this, but doesn't matter how we feel. It doesn't matter about our feelings. It doesn't matter what's happening or in our natural mind as we're doing this. God is at work. He is doing what He promised. Doesn't matter about your circumstances or what you're seeing today. God is at work. But as I've been sharing this word now about the faith, I want to just share this with you because I think this is incredible. You can drive your stake into the ground today, and we draw a line and we say, we're going to claim what He said, what is ours, and we're establishing our position this morning as in saying this, as we drive our stake into the ground, that the devil will not be able to move us from our position of faith as we stand firm. You know, I remember a time when we were in Zurich, my husband and I, we ended up there. We were helping an English church there in Zurich. And the church had just got us a little place in the red light district, a little place in the Salvation Army there. A beautiful place. It was beautiful to us, a little flat there. And we had nothing. We had been trusting God for those weeks that we were there. And well, we were there for longer than weeks already. But anyway, and we had nothing in the kitchen. We had no food or anything. And I said to Andre, you know what? I'm not going to allow this to stop God. Well, God's not going to be stopped, but to waver in my faith, I'm not going to allow that. I'm going to stand firm in this, that God is doing something. And I picked up my guitar and I just started worshiping the Lord and praising Him. And we were just doing it together. And then the next minute, we got a phone call to say that some people had bought us food. And it wasn't long, but our cupboards were full of food. Even to the place of little details in the kitchen that God provided, things that just worked so beautifully. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because in our lives, there's been so many times where God has come through, where God has done miracles, where provision has come in for us to walk out this journey. And these times become like little markers in our walks. And just like the Israelites, when they would build an altar to give thanks to the Lord, where they would pile up the rocks to remember and to bring glory to the Lord. That is in our lives, it is the same. Where you can look at those altars that were built. You know, it's like they were walking, or we are walking in this flat ground, this desert ground, and it's a long journey. And it can get to that place where you can say, hey, is anything actually happening? Because it doesn't feel like that. Are we actually making progress? I'm sure the Israelites said that many times in the desert. But when you look back and you can see the markers on your journey and see, God, that's when you did that. That's when you did that. Those beautiful markers tells you how far you have come already, the progress that you've made already, and the little piles of rocks reminding you of what God has done, what he did. And so looking back, just think about your life today and let that be encouragement to you today to know that you can be unchanging despite of what is happening, despite of the withholding of resources. And yes, listen, I'm a firm believer, we do that, of praying, I'm a warfare prayer and battling in prayer and doing all of that. But I'm just talking this morning and even the thing of praying over your bloodline. But this morning I'm speaking of, let's not fall into that trap of being distracted what wants to come and take away our firm faith that we're standing in today, because God is going to come through for you today. Believe his word regardless of what you are seeing, of your circumstances, of how you feel. And the reason I know this is because of many that we're journeying with have been going through things. It's been tough. It's been hard. And just like when Jesus said to Martha, why are you so worried? Why are you doing this? Why don't you come and sit here like Mary is doing the right thing with me, receiving the revelation and being refreshed? And so I just want to encourage you with that today. Encourage you, lilies, wildflowers of the field, that do not toil and labor, but God is the one. It's his hand that makes them beautiful. So I release over you right now, release over you courage and strength today to stand firm in your faith, to hold so strongly with all your might, doesn't matter what's happening, and to stand firm. Yeah, I just want to bless you. And I hope you were encouraged by this today. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, guys. I see. Yeah. Bless you guys.